Now that you've finished week 3, I would recommend going back and really spending some time with each instrument. If you're confused about any of the terminology or any of the controls on the synthesizer, feel free to let me know. We'll definitely get back to you. But also remember that in course 1, we spend quite a bit of time talking about synthesis, and there are some extra videos in the bonus section of that course which you can consult. So I would say take what you learned in week 1, lay a drum beat down, throw some samples down, and go in and add some of these instruments. And it may not be a bad idea every day to take one instrument and use it for 3 or 4 different instrument parts on top of the actual drum beat that you have going. With the multi-sampled instruments, those are pretty straightforward right now. You can add in those parts if you want, but you don't necessarily have to. We're going to spend a lot more time with the multi-sampled instruments and actually processing them next week in week number 4. Just as an FYI to everybody with these classifications, these are not set in stone. These are really just guidelines. I don't want somebody coming back afterwards and being like really a technical stickler and saying, no, technically this instrument should go here and whatever. That's not the point of this. The idea is just to make your life a little bit easier. So when you're going through and shopping for different plugins or instruments, you can quickly tell yourself, okay, this is probably where this is going to fit. And then obviously you want to demo that thing. You want to really listen to it and make sure that it's something that you want to have in your repertoire for when you're making music. So the guideline I have is ears first, eyes second, but both are important. So you always want to use your ears. Something could look just like a mini Moog and sound nothing like the original. It might still work for what you need, but just don't let your eyes deceive you first and then listen second, expecting to hear something. And it's the same thing like we saw with that virtual piano. The actual interface was maybe a little bit hokey, but the sound of it was actually really quite nice, or at least for me, it's quite nice. And again, all of this stuff comes back to your own personal preferences. You've already seen this slide a few times, but once again, this has been the ongoing message throughout this week. You want to think about what you're going for first and then make that instrument decision. You've seen this slide a few times already this week, and really it's been the message that's been delivered time and time again. But really, when you are making music, you want to think about what you're going for first. And it takes time, so don't be afraid or don't feel discouraged if you have to go through all 4 instruments and then make your decision after you've used all 4 instruments. That's totally okay. But when you get to a point where you're able to know in your head, okay, this is the sound I want, and this is the instrument that's going to get that for me, it really makes everything move that much more smoothly. So make an educated guess first. If you don't know 100%, guess among the 4 and say, okay, I think this is going to be the right thing. Try it out. If it doesn't work, then you pull to another instrument, etc., etc., etc. And I think that that is really a key to learning music creation or music production, when you're able to make those connections. And that's why you only want to add one synth at a time. So take your time with each instrument, really listen to it, really mess around with it so you can figure out what sounds it's really good at least in your opinion, what it sounds really good at, so you know when you want to go and grab that instrument and plug it in to make the sound that you want. Last but not least, I want all of you guys to consider this final sort of question here. Are you an artist or are you a producer? And I don't really care how you label yourself. Like, you can label yourself as a producer, but still technically be an artist. If you make music and it's under a name, like you have whatever that name is, and you consistently are releasing things on Beatport or whatever, chances are you're more of an artist because you have a distinct sound. People look you up because they know what to expect. They know the sort of music that you make, and at the very least, this works on an album-to-album basis. Your sound is always evolving, so it's not as if the album you make this year is going to be the same as something you make in 10 years. There's an expectation that it could be radically different, and that's fine. But normally when you are an artist, you have a distinct sound. And for that distinct sound, you have to use a specific set of tools, meaning that in your repertoire, in your digital audio workstation, you don't want to have 8,000 plugins because that's never going to get you to a distinct sound. You're always going to want to try to plug in something new. And also, it's going to take you forever to learn all those tools, and usually it gets in the way. It doesn't really help you that much as an artist. If you're a music producer, meaning you make music for someone else, people hire you to make a style or a sound of music, music, then you don't really have that distinct sound. You have a very diverse sound. And to be a music producer, or to be like the music producer's sidekick, right? So Dr. Luke has that guy Circuit who knows all of the technical stuff, knows all the instruments. That individual is going to know what to plug in for any genre without needing to do any additional experimentation, because it's not going to work in a professional production environment for you to be like, oh, hold on, this instrument doesn't work. Let's try this one. Oh, wait, I don't like this one either. Let's try this one. You need to know. You need to have a really good ear and also a really good memory to know what instrument is going to get you the sound that somebody is asking for. And in that situation, you do need to have a variety of tools. You need to have a really, really deep toolbox. You need to have a ton of plugins. And the same thing goes for like mix engineers too. You need to have that variety if that's what's expected of you and the work you do. But I just want to bring that up now. This is something we'll talk about a lot more on the site. But for most of you, at least at this point, you're really in more of the artist category. You're trying to define and distinguish yourself as an individual with a unique sound. Down the road, that might turn into production, but that requires a very different set of skills, a different set of listening skills, and knowing how to get the result that you're after to as close as possible. And to do that, you need to have a lot of tools. So that's going to do it for week number 3. Can't wait for week number 4 to get started.